Ipsos polling exclusively for Global News shows more than 70% of Canadians believe proof of vaccination should be required for things such as visiting a seniors facility, flying on an airplane, or traveling internationally. But Canadians' support for mandatory vaccines has softened, now at 63%. That's down 6 points from last month's polling. And a majority of Canadians continue to approve of the federal government's response to the pandemic, with 54% of those surveyed saying the Prime Minister has managed the crisis adequately.
In general, I think Canadians are becoming quite supportive of vaccine passports as they become vaccinated themselves. Clearly, if you have a vaccine already in you, you're going to be more supportive of vaccine passports. That's no skin off your back. You've already been vaccinated. Obviously, support for vaccine passports is considerably less among those who have yet to receive the vaccine, or maybe those who don't want to receive the vaccine. Still, in almost every case that we tested, whether it's for travel, to go to university or college, for indoor events, for outdoor events, a majority of those people, even those that haven't been vaccinated, support the idea of a vaccine passport. Now, the fact that a majority supports doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be contentious, right? Those people who choose not to receive the vaccine or cannot receive the vaccine for any number of reasons, they're going to be upset if they're left on the sidelines and you've got two classes of people. And I think that's why even though you've got a majority, and in many cases a strong majority, who support the idea of a vaccine passport, it still may not be a politically expedient thing to do. Younger people are much less likely to support the idea of vaccine passports. The Liberal government of Justin Trudeau likes to court the support of younger voters. And so if this is a contentious issue, particularly among those people, again, it may not be a vote winner. So even though the public is largely behind it, I don't know whether we're going to see politicians jumping on that bandwagon, so to speak, and actually proposing it as a matter of public policy. We saw support for mandatory vaccines spike last month. The only time it had ever been higher was when we were first talking about the vaccine last year. It's now subsided. It's still, well into 60%, but it's down from figures last month that were closer to 70%. I think the AstraZeneca situation may have contributed to that decline in support for mandatory vaccinations. Some questions remain about whether or not you can mix AstraZeneca with an mRNA vaccine. We're still waiting for some guidance on that. So just while I think there are some unresolved questions among the scientific community, we now see support for mandatory vaccinations subside slightly. But if there's clear guidance that comes out and it makes sense and it's consistent, that's the key, that needs to be consistent, then I think we'll probably see that number rise, particularly as more Canadians get vaccinated. So we're seeing that the Prime Minister's approval rating when it comes to his handling of the pandemic has been dropping over the last couple of months. It now rests at about 50%. It was closer to 60% earlier this year. And I think that's just largely to do with fatigue. We've been in this pandemic now for over a year. We've seen similar drops for the premiers across Canada. We've seen similar drops in approval ratings for the mayors across Canada. I think it's just Canadians taking out their frustrations a little bit that, we're not further along than we'd like to be. But I think the real important thing here is that despite the fact that approval ratings are dropping, they're still very strong. It is not common for our political leaders in Canada in a multi-party system to have approval ratings of over 50%. That doesn't happen all that often. And so the fact that the Prime Minister is still at 50% bodes really well for him in a hypothetical election that might take place this year.